Caitlin Clark's golf debut, and it is no fault of hers that I got upset. It is the fault of the WNBA because the LPGA just did everything that the WNBA should have been doing this season. They did it all correct in literally one day.
The LPGA understand what's great for business. Not what's good for business, what's great. It'd be nice if the WNBA could get with the program. It'd be nice if you didn't allow your greatest asset to get beat up and hacked and fouled 94 feet and be targeted since day one of stepping into the league. It'd be nice. It'd be smart. You'd be better off.
Caitlin Clark wasn't just a college star. She was a cultural event. From the moment she stepped onto the court at Iowa, every game felt like a national broadcast. Arenas sold out weeks in advance, TV ratings shattered records, and suddenly women's basketball wasn't just a niche sport, it was a movement. Her deep threes became viral memes, her confidence a rallying cry, and her name alone could turn a regular season matchup into must-see television. She didn't just play the game, she changed its rhythm. By the time she entered the WNBA, expectations weren't high, they were astronomical. Fans believed she would carry the league into a new era the way Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. And for a while, it looked like she would. Her debut drew millions of viewers. Merchandise sold out overnight. Even rival teams saw ticket sales explode when she came to town. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't a slogan. It was an economic phenomenon. But behind all the celebration, a different story was forming, one of pressure, jealousy, and politics. Opponents treated her like a target instead of a rookie. Hard fouls piled up. Critics claimed she was overhyped. Commentators debated whether she deserved the spotlight or simply benefited from timing. Even some veterans seemed resentful of her sudden stardom. Through it all, Caitlin kept smiling, that calm, camera-ready composure that made her look untouchable. But those close to her could sense something shifting. She wasn't just fighting defenders on the court, she was battling a system that wanted to celebrate her and silence her at the same time. The fans saw it too. Something about the league's energy felt off. Caitlin was shining brighter than ever, yet somehow it felt like the walls around her were closing in. On camera, Caitlin Clark was all grace, smiling during interviews, shaking hands after games, thanking fans no matter how rough the night got. But beneath that calm exterior, the cracks were beginning to show. Every hard foul that went uncalled, every subtle jab from commentators, every cold shoulder from league officials, it started to pile up. She'd spent her life building a reputation on performance, not politics. Yet suddenly she was navigating a world where image management mattered more than the scoreboard. The whispers started quietly. Some said she wasn't allowed to speak freely in press conferences. Others claimed league officials wanted to tone down the media obsession around her to avoid overshadowing other players. When she didn't react to provocations on court, critics called her soft. When she fired back with her play, they called her arrogant. It was a lose-lose situation, the kind every superstar eventually faces when their light burns too bright for the system built around them. Fans saw what was happening before the headlines did. They flooded social media defending her, dissecting every missed foul and every biased segment. Why isn't the league protecting her became the recurring question under every clip. Even neutral commentators started to hint that something was off, that the league was mishandling its biggest asset. Through it all, Caitlin never complained publicly. She smiled, signed autographs, and kept showing up even when it was clear the love wasn't always mutual. But inside, something had shifted. The joy of the game was turning into a balancing act between performance and politics. And that silence, that quiet professionalism everyone praised her for, would soon be shattered by one swing. A single moment that would flip the narrative forever. The call came quietly, almost like a joke. The LPGA's Gainbridge-backed Annika Pro-Am wanted to invite Caitlin Clark, the basketball superstar, to join their lineup. It wasn't common practice. This was golf's elite stage, named after Annika Sorenstam, one of the greatest athletes the sport had ever seen. Pro golfers, corporate sponsors, media partners, everyone expected familiar faces, not a WNBA rookie with a viral jump shot. But sometimes history doesn't send invitations. It sends opportunities disguised as surprises. No one really believed she'd say yes. Her schedule was already chaos, travel, training, press league obligations. The safe move would have been to politely decline and stay in her lane. But Caitlin Clark had stopped playing it safe the moment people told her she couldn't. So when the LPGA offer landed on her desk, she didn't hesitate. She said yes. That one word hit like an earthquake. The sports world blinked. Caitlin Clark joins LPGA event breaking boundaries again, one headline screamed. ESPN picked it up within minutes, and social media went into overdrive. Golf fans were intrigued, basketball fans were stunned. The crossover energy was electric, as if two completely different worlds had suddenly collided under one spotlight. Annika Sorenstam herself praised the move, calling Caitlyn a competitor in every sense. Sponsors scrambled to adjust their marketing materials. Even Tiger Woods reportedly made a few calls to confirm it was real. The idea of basketball's brightest star stepping onto golf's greenest stage felt absurd, yet completely inevitable. Within hours, the Annika Pro-Am transformed from a quiet preseason event into a global media spectacle. What was supposed to be a fun exhibition round suddenly carried the weight of a cultural moment. Caitlin Clark wasn't just crossing sports, she was crossing limits, and every league watching knew it. Back in New York, the WNBA headquarters was buzzing, but not with celebration. What began as a lighthearted crossover event was rapidly spiraling into a full-blown PR crisis. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert watched from her office as the numbers poured in. LPGA viewership up, social media engagement skyrocketing, sponsors calling them instead of her. For the first time, the league's biggest story wasn't happening on the court. It was happening on a golf course hundreds of miles away. The optics were brutal. The player the WNBA had built its entire marketing campaign around was now making another league rich in attention money and global headlines. ESPN's lead story wasn't the upcoming WNBA finals, it was Caitlin Clark's swing. Clips of Tiger Woods reacting to her shot were doing more views than the league's own highlight reels. And as the data rolled in, it confirmed the nightmare every executive dreads: the brand was losing control of its own narrative. Behind closed doors, frustration bubbled over. Sponsors demanded meetings. Why wasn't the WNBA leveraging this moment? Analysts questioned whether the league had failed to protect its most valuable asset. Players whispered in private group chats about favoritism, inequality, and leadership missteps. Some even joked half seriously about trying golf themselves. The worst part, Caitlyn hadn't even said a word. She hadn't criticized anyone, hadn't hinted at rebellion. She just showed up, smiled, and played. Yet that simple act, stepping beyond the league's shadow, exposed everything fragile about the WNBA system. Cathy Engelbert knew what it meant, a shift she couldn't stop. What started as one appearance was now a symbol of something much larger, a league losing control not through scandal, but through silence. A silence that was suddenly deafening. The LPGA didn't waste a second. Within hours of Caitlyn's swing going viral, they flooded social media with highlight clips, behind-the-scenes reels, and exclusive interviews. They launched limited edition merchandise featuring her signature and announced a replay special on national TV. Sponsors lined up tagging her in posts with captions like, "Game recognizes game." It was a masterclass in timing, a perfect example of a league that understood how to turn a moment into a movement. Meanwhile, the WNBA stayed quiet. Their social channels barely mentioned the event, as if pretending it wasn't happening would make it go away. Executives feared that acknowledging Caitlyn's golf success might make the league look secondary. But that silence spoke volumes. Fans noticed, commentators noticed, even other players noticed. Why are they acting like it didn't happen? One analyst asked live on air. It was the question that captured the entire contrast between the two worlds. In golf, Caitlyn was welcomed with open arms, treated like family from the first tee. In basketball, she was still being treated like a headline to manage. The LPGA gave her space to shine. The WNBA tried to fit her into a mold. The difference was more than marketing. It was philosophy. Golf saw opportunity. Basketball saw control. The LPGA understood that celebrating individuality builds a league. The WNBA still seemed afraid that too much spotlight on one player would leave others in the dark, but that fear became their undoing. Because in a digital age where athletes are their own brands, fans don't follow leagues, they follow people. And Caitlin Clark had just proven she could move entire audiences wherever she went. While golf opened its arms, basketball built walls, and the world noticed. By the end of the week, one thing was undeniable. Caitlin Clark had become the face of two sports at once. The internet crowned her queen of the court and the course, and the title stuck. Every clip of her smiling with Nelly Korda or walking beside Tiger Woods racked up millions of views. Golf fans who'd never watched basketball before were suddenly Googling her highlights, while basketball fans found themselves tuning into LPGA coverage just to see her play. The crossover was seamless, electric, and unstoppable. Suddenly, women's sports weren't competing. They were converging. Athletes from different disciplines began speaking out, praising Caitlyn for what she'd done. Tennis stars, soccer players, even Olympians called her move bold and game-changing. They saw something bigger than just a tournament appearance. They saw a blueprint for freedom. For the first time, it wasn't the leagues driving popularity, it was the players themselves. Sponsorship data confirmed what social media already knew. Brands that once focused solely on the WNBA were now in talks with LPGA organizers, eager to follow where Caitlyn went next. fast. Merchandise sales surged across platforms, and hashtags like Creators Caitlyn Effect started trending globally. Sports analysts called it a player-driven revolution, a moment when individual influence finally overpowered institutional control. Even the tone of the coverage changed. Reporters stopped calling her a basketball star trying golf and started calling her a multi-sport icon. The message was clear: Caitlin Clark wasn't switching games, she was expanding the definition of an athlete. And that shift didn't just lift her. It lifted everyone watching, the fans, the players, the young girls realizing they didn't have to pick one lane. The Caitlyn effect wasn't about rebellion. It was about evolution. As Caitlin Clark walked off the final green, the Florida sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the fairway. She didn't lift a trophy. She didn't need to. The scorecard was irrelevant. The real victory had already happened in every cheer from the crowd, in every viral clip, in every headline that refused to talk about leagues and instead talked about her. She had shown the world something the sports industry rarely admits: that true greatness doesn't wait for permission. She smiled, waved to the fans, and slipped quietly into the clubhouse. No big speeches, no drama, just calm satisfaction. To some, it looked like the end of a fun experiment. But to anyone paying attention, it was clear this was something else entirely: a declaration of freedom. Caitlin Clark had just rewritten the unwritten rules of professional sports. Her story became a mirror reflecting a much bigger truth: when systems try to control greatness, greatness finds another stage. The LPGA had understood that. The WNBA hadn't. And in that contrast lay the beginning of a new era, one where athletes hold the power, where audiences follow authenticity over branding, and where the next revolution isn't fought in boardrooms but in moments like one perfect swing. The conversation online was split. Some called it rebellion, a silent protest against corporate control. Others saw it as evolution, the natural next step in an age where players shape their own destinies. But everyone agreed on one thing: Caitlin Clark had changed the game. So what do you think? Was this an act of defiance, or the first chapter of something bigger? Because sometimes the most powerful shot isn't the one aimed at victory, it's the one that breaks the boundaries of fear.